Hey folks, Fernando doing a video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case I'm going to be answering this question that I'm getting a lot, which is what's the effective range of a shotgun? This question is like asking how long should a string be or how much does a rock weigh? It is kind of impossible to come with a solid, pretty much definite conclusion, very tight in those numbers, but you can somewhat get an answer, and this is what I'll try to do this in this video, especially given that we've been talking about shotguns lately as a firearm that is adequate for a home defense, a neighborhood defense, maybe for someone that is not all that much into firearms and you want to give them something that's simple to operate, that is effective as well. I was reading someone commenting that a friend of theirs bought a shotgun for defense, giving the context that we all know we are in right now, and when they try to buy ammunition, the same store that sold them the shotgun didn't have any Buckshot or any Slugs, and they only had Birdshot, which kind of upset the person that bought the shotgun in the first place. So how effective and what ranges is a shotgun going to be effective? Well, it's going to be depending on a number of factors, most of all on the kind of ammunition that you're shooting. As most of you know, you have either Slugs, a solid projectile, just one bullet. You have Buckshot, which is several larger projectiles, and you have your Birdshot. And Birdshot itself comes in different configurations and different size of those pellets. These would be some of the larger pellets you can find. I think this is like number 0 or 1 or something like that. This would be like these are BBs basically. So these are the larger ones you can get that are still, Birdshot, but next step is gonna be a Buckshot. Okay, so largest Birdshot available, Slugs and Buckshot. So let's start with a very simple answer, which is how far is a shotgun effective? Well, if you're gonna be using Slugs, okay, let's start with Slugs. With a slug, you're talking about several yards, over 100, 200 yards, even 300 yards. Man, if you're going to be getting hit with a slug at 300 yards, you're not going to be sitting there pretty. It is going to be causing a very serious wound. A slug, it has a lot of mass, has more than enough velocity to be very effective at ranges beyond what you're likely capable to be accurate at with a shotgun. Okay, so if you hit someone 200 yards away, which will be a challenge, you have sabot slugs, you have rifled shotguns, and you can become very accurate with one. But honestly, beyond 100 and something, 200 yards, you're kind of out of the range in terms of accuracy with that type of gun. But in terms of effectiveness, forget about it. A slug will be effective at anything you're accurate with that gun. Moving to the next option, which is gonna be the classic Buckshot. How effective is? Well, same thing. You're talking about a projectile that is, it could be a number of sizes. You have Buckshot that are pretty much spheres of 22s. It could be like a 30 caliber slug, a 30 caliber projectile. If you're talking about a 30 caliber projectile, it's maybe 8.3 millimeters in diameter. That's going to be going out at a velocity not all that different from a 32, 38 short revolver. That is a projectile that's going to be very effective, a good distance downrange. So if someone's getting hit with Buckshot 100 yards, 200 yards, it's still gonna be more than likely to be lethal if it hits in the right area. Usually here is where hunters go out and say, you'll never shoot anything beyond 50 yards with a Buckshot because it's not effective. Well, it's not so much that it's not effective, it's more about the pattern spreading so much that you're not getting enough pellets so as to be a humane, effective kill. But if you're talking about an accidental shot of someone that got one of these pellets at 100 yards, that is going to be penetrating a good bit, and it's more than likely to be fatal if it hits in the right area. So Buckshot, think of it this way, as a poor 32, 38 short round, lead round nose. That is kind of the ballistics you can expect from this at those distances. Of course, at 50 yards, you're talking about several gunshots, and several of those 32, 38 shots at the same time, which has a lot more impact and a lot more efficiency, let alone 25 yards. You're talking about a complete type of different terminal ballistics. It's one of the most effective rounds you can fire. So those would be the ranges in which you're looking at as of, is that effective? Think of it in terms of neighborhood, community self-defense. Someone is posted with a shotgun, something that has your typical defensive shotgun will be a cylinder choke, will not be the choke is how the diameter is reduced at the end of the barrel so as to tighten that pattern. So most cases, home defense shotguns will have a cylinder choke, which is those that barrel has no choking whatsoever, right? It's just cylinder, just goes out the same way. You have some defensive shotguns specially made so as to have a bit of a choke, so as to keep that pattern of that buckshot tighter at longer ranges, and that may spread not the. You're going to be putting more pellets in a smaller diameter at further ranges, which is going to be making it more effective. Now, the individual energy is still going to be pretty much the same, all right? Now, the more complicated answer is when it comes to birdshot. So when it comes to birdshot, you're talking about very small shot that is going to be losing, it's very little mass, it's going to be losing a lot of energy very fast. So here range is crucial. In general, trying to keep this video not too long, but in general, at home defense type of ranges, 5-10 yards, give or take, pretty much anything out of a 12 gauge shotgun is likely to be effective. And we'll go back to that in a second. But in terms of how far is this going to be effective, if you're talking about 100 yards, like we were talking so far, at 100 yards, nothing. It's not even going to be penetrating the skin. It's not even going to be penetrating the clothing that the person is wearing. So at 100 yards, birdshot, even some of the thicker ones, the bigger ones, these are, and there's going to be more effectiveness depending on how big these are. But at 100 yards, really, even this is not going to be even penetrating skin. That's simply the way it is, not enough mass, okay? Now, when you start getting closer, let's say 50 yards, right? At 50 yards, you are likely, depending on what load you're using, but it is likely to penetrate skin. Okay, 50 yards depending on the kind. Maybe if you're using number 8, number 9, some of the smaller shot you can find, maybe even at that it's not going to be penetrating skin. But in general, with some of the best, longer barrel, good choke, and some of the bigger shot, it's likely to penetrate skin, and of course, maybe take someone's eye out if it so hits someone. Does that mean that it's effective because it penetrates skin? No, that is not how you measure the efficiency or the stopping power. It will not be effective as a self-defense round by any parameters that you're using. It's just barely penetrating skin, and it's just going to be pissing someone off. Of course, you can modify shells, and you can take away the birdshot and put maybe a slug or something else. You can do a number of things. But when it comes to birdshot, 50 yards, give or take, penetrating skin. Usually, something that you'd say is, again, with some of the heavier shot, some of the bigger shot, and some of the heavier loads, this is 36 grains of shot, with some of the best options within birdshot, about 25 yards, right, 25 yards is where you'll get a somewhat of an effective shot, even though birdshot by most parameters is simply not considered adequate for self-defense. Now, when you start getting even closer, the efficiency of birdshot starts growing exponentially. If you're looking at the typical 7 to 10 yard range, then you're talking about this. Even some of the smaller, even pretty much anything coming out of a 12 gauge shotgun is likely to be effective against someone that is attacking you. This is simply because there's a lot of shot here, and it's not going to be spreading all that much at that range. It's pretty much going to be creating a big nasty wound that's going to be penetrating 4-5 inches, give or take, depending on the clothing, the size of the person and whatnot, the kind of shot that you're using. This is not effective by pretty much any, if you look at the FBI's 12-inch penetration of gelatin after going through 4 layers of Demin, this is not going to be cutting it. And does that mean that it's not effective? No. People get shot and killed with birdshot at close range every single day. There's a video that I think illustrates this point very well that I think it's a very good one. I haven't been able to find it again, but there's a video of an active shooter in a university that shoots. He just goes into, I think, a library, and he shoots a very, very big girl. But by big girl, I mean a tall woman, overweight, big bone structure, tall, but a lot of weight, a lot of fat besides that. Now, if you start adding winter clothing, a thick jacket, and she gets, basically what happens in the scene is this guy goes into the library with a shotgun. He sees this girl at maybe 4 yards away, points a shotgun and shoots her point blank almost, and she just looks shocked, looks around and starts running away as if nothing, as if she hadn't been hit with anything. That surprises a lot of people, definitely surprised me, but when you understand what went on in that case, you see why that happened. What happened is, you're talking about a very big girl, overweight, a lot of fat, and the shot being used was birdshot. So what that's going to be doing is, if you look at it from sideways, you're going to be having maybe 3-4 layers of some type of clothing, a jacket, and then you have the shoulder of this girl, which it's easily going to be 4 inches of just body fat. There's just 4 inches there easily of fat. That's even before you even reach, not even talking about any kind of vital organs, before you even reach muscle, anything that impairs movement. So this shot is going to be penetrating pretty much this wide, creating an awful nasty wound, right? But just not penetrating enough to matter in terms of stopping someone or even being lethal. It's just going to be a very nasty, horrible wound. That same shot to the face, of course, different story. Skull, forget about it. But you cannot measure effectiveness by best case scenario. That's definitely not what the FBI does. That's why they go with their 12 inches of penetration. So this is simply not going to be penetrating enough. Having said that, if you're looking at avoiding over penetration, a small apartment, dry walls, that sort of thing, and you want to avoid over penetration, this will be one of the things that many people will suggest, including myself. Having said this, in case of this larger girl, if this had been a skinny tall guy, a guy with very little fat, very low body mass, and maybe summer, a t-shirt, that same guy, maybe a 6-foot skinny guy getting shot with this, no fat so as to absorb anything, that's going straight into the arm and just ripping the arm off, going maybe even blasting through the elbow or going through the shoulder and messing up completely nerves, arteries. It may make a huge mess in that same round being fired that did nothing to the larger girl, the girl that had a lot more body mass. Okay, that's why you see so many cases of something like this being used in home defense across the world in different cases, and it's still very effective because in general it's going to be not someone so big, it's going to be something maybe a little more skinny, the chances of that happening, but it will depend. There's plenty of stories of people getting shot with birdshot and just nothing. They just go to a hospital, get the pellets removed, and that's it. Guys, that is the ranges that you're looking at in terms of efficiency and what you can expect from the different loads of shotgun at different ranges. I hope you enjoyed this little video that clarified a little bit more what you're likely to expect from this. Subscribe to the channel. Remember, my books are available following the links below. You want to get these for proper preparation. See you on the next video. Have an awesome day.